I have the great pleasure of welcoming our special guest this evening, Leigh Taylor Young Morton, which is why we are all here. And so it's really quite the remarkable pleasure that she said yes, and that we get to have Leigh and really just have a night that's about Leigh and all of the immense, incredible work, and it kind of really one of the most fascinating lives that is imaginable in so many ways. So I think many people here know Leigh through work in the movement of spiritual inner awareness. If you don't, you can let us know, but I'm looking around and that's kind of what I see. I think you all know that she is the ambassador for Prana. And honestly, Leigh is the ambassador for the traveler all over the world because she travels all the time, all over the world. She happens to be married to our traveler and spiritual leader, John Morton. Leigh has worked with numerous agencies and has been a spokesperson in some very, very important places, including the United Nations, and has done work on women's health and a variety of things like that. Hillary is going to go ahead and put her email, her website address now in the chat. She's also going to put our Movement Monday address. If you'd like to be added to our mailing list to find out what's coming up, we'd be happy to do that. And so there's so much that's on Leigh's personal email address. Personal website, excuse me. So there is also Leigh the actress, and Leigh the artist, and Leigh the performer, and Leigh the expression of Leigh in this world that she came into. So I think some of us may get an opportunity to ask questions and learn more about that part of Leigh's life, things that maybe predate even meeting John Roger. And she has wonderful stories about John Roger and meeting him and her career and her lifetime. And so I have to say, welcome, welcome, Leigh. And before we go any further, am I leaving anything out, Steve, that you can think of? Are we good? Okay. And so welcome, Leigh. The floor is yours. And I believe that you have total freedom to do exactly as you wish.
Oh my, what an invitation. Thank you. First of all, Janet, thank you for inviting me to this, and with the loving intent with which you reached out to me and said, I'd love to provide an atmosphere where you can be with people, our family and others who might enjoy asking you questions. And we discussed, I'm just completely open to that. That's actually what would be the most interesting to me today, because with my life, I love what I do on a daily basis with the MSI work. It's sacred, precious to me. I've had some other lives, and they're pretty much all on that website, by the way. Every kind of story that's on the website is one I wrote. So they're all written kind of from life experience and the desire to share. I did that website in 1996, when at that time, how fast we've moved, people were not doing personal websites. They were corporate, they were businesses. And I decided that I wanted to do this website, and I had the blessing. At that time, people weren't using a lot of .com names. So I got a real short one. It's just LTY.com. I've had a lot of offers for a lot of money for that, and I've so far said no. Because JR gave me the name LTY, and I kind of hold it sacred as he said it was my spiritual name. So whatever it is, I love it. So if you wanted to see more, and I would love, because one of my favorite things to do is to call in the light. And I know we already called it in for our staff here. I'd like to call it in for all of us for this experience. in whatever level that it touches you, and by the way, I am very open. So I do invite you to ask whatever you wish. That's how I'm going to really start it after the light, is make it open, and that will sort of start it all going. So let's just, a lot of us are in MSIA, the movement of spiritual inner awareness. Perhaps some are not. So I'm hopeful that if you're not, that you get the loving in calling in the light. So here we go. Father, Mother, God, we come in to that beautiful, quiet, welcoming place inside of ourselves for your presence. We feel it very immediately, your presence. And we call ourselves forward into the light of the Holy Spirit, the light of the Christ. And it's always for our highest good. We ask for a clearing for any one of us, that whether it's any kind of imbalance, disturbance of any kind on any level, known or unknown, it may be unknown, just give it up to the light and just ask that it be transmuted into pure love for the highest good. We invite in our travelers, John Roger and John Morton. We invite the Lord Jesus Christ. We also invite all the beings that are in spirit, that love us, each one of us, that work with us in love and light and sound, to be with us. So it's a pleasure to be gathering wherever we are in the world, wherever you are. God bless you. I love you. Thrilled to be with you. And may this be lots and lots of fun. So that's it. And we'll say the blessings already are. Berush Beshan. So I would just like to open it. I know that there's a system to hands or whatever it is, but maybe you'll help me, Janet.
I will be happy to help you. And as people raise hands,
Okay.
I can help with that. I'd like to really start things off with a question that I have. I briefly touched on it earlier, but I found all sorts of fascinating things that I didn't know about you in your website, and I was very interested. You're going back to Washington, D.C., but that's where you were born, and you had and it touched me very much. I had a very special grandfather, and I believe you did too. You wrote about it. And I was wondering if you would tell us a little bit about him and little bit about your early experience and what kind of awakening or what kind of experience your childhood was. And then I also want just a second part of that, the discussion the mention of a book that he brought you back from a trip.
Sure. Well, my grandfather, he was a farmer. He was an Iowa farmer, came from a family of farmers in Harlan, Iowa. And they were at that time, looking back at 1900 and the late 1800s, they were the real deal in America. They were really to say it's the earth of America, the spirit of America, farmers, American farmers. But he had a longing for education. His father was well educated, but chose to be a farmer. And so he just went to school and learned everything he could pick up that had the printed word on it. So he had a great love of literature, great love of books and life and natural life. So when, let's say, I met my grandfather, of course, I was just born. He had been a professor at Cornell, professor at American University, because at this point he was a professor of sociology. And his specialty was that he had developed and actually coined and created, out of the Depression, out of the New Deal, out of World War II and Roosevelt as our leader at the time. It was called rural sociology, which was the study of the American farmer, but not just the American farmer, but the rural movement, the agrarian movements all over the world. India, South America, he became a specialist on Argentina, India, any number of countries. So my mother was a single mother pretty quick. And she worked at the Department of Agriculture. My grandfather worked at the Department of Agriculture, and he was very close to Roosevelt. And so my mother and working, they didn't have childcare in those days. My favorite thing was to take me to the Department of Agriculture. And Angel Harper would probably know about this because those gorgeous buildings in Washington, D.C., like the Smithsonian or the Department of Agriculture, all those buildings where government people worked in the 40s and the 50s, still do, but I'm going to that time because I was born in 1945. So when I was about 4 years old, my daycare was at the Department of Agriculture, and I was a wild thing. I loved to be free, which was a little disturbing to my mother. Control was her thing. And so she sort of brought in the wrong child for that, but that's okay. She seemed to love me anyway. And I used to love to run in those halls because the floors were marble. So, and why those buildings were built so beautifully. And I used to go all the way, like it felt like a block down, go running as fast as I could, and then just slide as much of the rest of the way as I could on my bottom. She did not think that was dignified, but anytime I could do it, and all the people were my surrogate parents. The rest of the time I was with my grandfather. And he did a wonderful thing for me that whether he was my grandfather or an uncle or a friend who I had a lot of closeness to, the thing he did with me, he treated me genuinely as if I was the most interesting person he ever knew. So the way he would look at me, the way he would speak to me, the way he would greet me was with that attentiveness to really me as a little soul. It was as if I was seen. It was as if his attention took me in. It ignited me in a lot of ways, that quality. So when he began very young saying, he called me Tyke, which is kind of an American colloquialism, meaning you're a little tyke, kind of. And my last name was Taylor, so I became quite well known as Tyke Taylor, the uncontrollable one. I wasn't ever angry. I was just such a free spirit. And he would say to me, let's look at your reading, because he saw very early on that I wanted to read anything that had a letter. I just was sort of like a little mini me and him. I wanted to read. So he started progressing my reading way beyond my schooling. He didn't give me a message that this was way beyond me. Instead, he gave me the message of, we're sharing this together. He'd have me read something if I didn't understand something, and he started teaching me, which he later told me, Socratically, meaning he'd have me read something, and then we'd have a meeting time, and he'd say, now, what did that mean to you? What do you think about that? So he didn't promote what I should think. He invited what I did think based on my experience of the reading. That way of being is what set in motion really my spiritual path. He was my first guru. The word guru, it's the guru word, gu pam, rupam. It means the dispeller of darkness. And that's what kind of teacher he was. We'd go walking in the rain. Everybody else would go inside. He'd say, let's walk in the rain because you're going to see things you've never seen. So we'd walk. He said, don't bother about wearing a slicker. Let's get wet. It was perfect for me. And we'd walk, and he would show me worms, and he would show me the way the leaves fell in the rain. So it was just eye-opening. And he always, again, expected that I would understand. So he really continued that way of educating me, even when I started going to school, living with him and my grandmother as my mother worked. So I was also homeschooled at the same time I was going to a regular school. So he would give me additional reading. Like when I was 9, he was giving me all the Greek and Roman myths, knowing I wouldn't understand every word, but he still wanted to know. So he kept elevating my sense of expansion with no limitations. And again, this was moving my spiritual curiosity. In terms of spirit, very young, because he was my igniter. My mother was my stability. I came in pretty quick with awareness, a lot of awareness. It was as if I was always walking around with something really big with me. I couldn't see it, I just knew it. Nothing in my life was matching up to explain it. I never really talked about it. But my mother, when my grandfather couldn't take me, put me in a boarding house in Washington. The lady who was the head of the boarding house took in small children with working mothers. She was like the Wicked Witch of the East. She was not very nice. She had a black bun. She had roll-up stockings below her knees and wore an apron all the time. And she didn't like to talk. She just liked to kind of yell. So I was sort of, again, infinitely always curious. I used to like to crawl around on the kitchen floor and peek under her skirt and look in the refrigerator and go in the cupboards. And so she had a bit of a entertainment value with me. But one of the things that I decided young, maybe 3, except with my grandfather, not even my mother, I didn't want to talk. So I really didn't start talking until between 4 and 5. I was already reading. And I remember the decision I made was because talking upset this equilibrium with this presence that was always with me. Talking seemed to disturb it, so I wanted to be quiet. And the only reason I started talking was because this lady I was describing became very abusive, and I decided it was time to tell my mother. So I began realizing that talking was a tool. Grandfather continued this homeschool education. It became such that he'd finish work, he'd have dinner, I'd have dinner, I'd go to bed, pretend. I'd meet him in the living room by the fireplace at 9 o'clock. And from 9 to 11, he would teach me about Socrates, Plato, the myths, Egypt. It just went on, and I was blessed. But I didn't know it was a blessing. It was just how I was living. When he went to work in India for the Ford Foundation, he met Yogananda. One thing I hadn't mentioned is he was also a minister. He was a congregational minister. So my grandfather was a minister. He came back having met Yogananda with a hand-signed book of autobiography of a yogi. I was 12 when he came back, and he said, "This is for you, Tyke. I want you to read it. I want to start our meetings." The good news about the book he gave me was it affirmed and confirmed so many experiences I'd been having all the way along, and I had no one to talk to. I didn't even mention them to him. But when I read this book, it all came out. And that was the grand accelerator for my seeking in a very, very active way. Long-winded answer, went all over the place, but that's it.
It's a beautiful answer. So a follow-on to that is you have this gorgeous speaking voice. You decided to delay when you were going to speak, and then your expression came in that way. Is there anything there that you can share?
Up until I met JR, I'd had a very active film career before I met JR. But unless I was doing a role, I still didn't talk very much. I talked to my mother at this point, but I was introverted, just sort of a natural introvert, except when I worked. And one of the reasons I chose acting in college was because I had just a terrible time talking to people socially. I was so shy and kind of scared of people. I was never afraid of a book or a quiet room or certain people like my grandfather, my mother, or my little brother and sister, but people where I just was quiet. I didn't feel like I knew how to socially interact. So even when I came to JR, I was still in that place. And then he worked with me, and he asked me one day, "Would you do a meditation for me, a recorded meditation?" I said, "JR, I would love to." And then at that time he said, "Spirit's placed a blessing with your voice. So he said, I encourage you to use it. So that just seemed to happen naturally thereafter, where more and more organically, it wasn't like a push. It seemed like whatever the block was, that he had relieved me of it, and it became so much more fluid. And the irony was, he also started asking me to introduce him at times, which was not like recording something in a studio in the dark. It was, I was scared when I was with Muktananda, still in that very quiet time, Baba would ask me to introduce him in front of 500 people. And I realize in retrospect, they were I'll call it encouragement, that they were encouraging me to speak and to be in front a bit, which later became in my ministerial blessing about being in front and being a focus of caring, loving in my expression and with myself. So I think for all of us, we're just such organic flowers that have opened with spirit in all different kinds of ways. If we look back 50 years, we go, wow, that's a miracle. And indeed, it's a miracle of spirit working with us and us working intimately with spirit. It's available to miracles, and we're the miracle, and we get to discover ourselves as a miracle.
So I'm going to ask one more thing, and then I'm out, and everybody else can, I hope, come up with wonderful questions. I had mentioned this to you also. Your acting career is something that I loved exploring, and there were some things that I already knew and some things that I had remembered from being a child. I told you this story. I'm going to repeat it for everybody. I was a little girl, and I was standing in my, somebody needs to mute, girl, and standing in my parents, my grandparents' living room. And I look, and there's this face, this beautiful face on the television. And my grandparents are having a discussion about whatever this television show is about, because it's very grown up, and I couldn't understand it, really, the language around it, but I saw this face, and they told me that the name of the show was Peyton Place. And so I could see it for if we would go over to my grandparents' house. But at my parents' house, my mother told me that it was a grown-up show and that I was not supposed to be watching it yet. So I felt like those were stolen moments. And I wonder if you could talk about it. Now I have you here. Yes. I stole the moments back then, and now you're here. So tell me about it.
Well, it was another miracle. I had already opened in a play on Broadway with a pretty significant role at 21, but the play closed during a huge strike in New York that shut down everything in the winter. Transportation, no theater could stay open. So my play, after about 6 months, closed. And I won't even say how serendipitously I ended up in Los Angeles, meeting an agent out there through my New York agent. Did not want to be there at all, did not want to do television, laid down a gauntlet. I'm doing theater only. I was such a purist. I wanted to do Ibsen and Chekhov and Hedda Gabler. I mean, that's all I wanted to do. But my agent, these new agents that I met said, oh my God, there's this available role on Peyton Place. Mia Farrow, it was Mia Farrow's role, and she left to go marry Frank Sinatra. And we'd love you to meet them. So I met them reluctantly. They said they wanted me to screen test. And in a screen test, the way a screen test is organized, they make the deal up front. You sign it, you commit to it. I'm clearing Peyton Place.
Get some water. Maybe that'll help you. Sip some water, a little warm water.
The water I sip. Thank you, honey. Thank you for that. I did.
Okay.
You had to sign off on it. So if you didn't get it, they just tore it up. But if you got it, you'd already made the deal. You had to stick with it and show up. I was very reluctant and I said, no, I'm not going to do this. They had to call my mother in Michigan to encourage her, to encourage me to understand that this was an extraordinary opportunity, way beyond most people's. And that even though it was a 7-year contract, I would only be 28 and with lots of opportunity. And my mother did call me, did convince me. So I went in for the screen test and got it like immediately and had to show up the following week. So my whole life changed. And I'm on this show with all these people who are very charismatic, like Ryan O'Neal, like Ed Nelson. I mean, so many names. Dorothy Malone. I don't know if any of you remember her. And and I was a very trained theater actress, so I was absorbed in my performance. They were all loosey-goosey. They were making jokes until action. Me, it was like, you didn't do that. You know, I was very, very professional and centered. It was very successful for me. I had no idea what was going on. All I knew was that I'm doing the best work I know how to do. The rest was the wildest ride I had ever been on. So that's what you saw. I was really an innocent, now new to Hollywood. I'd never even seen Peyton Place. It was the biggest show in the world. And I had just sort of breezed in. The good news was I didn't take it lightly. I did, but I took it seriously and I did the work. So that's all I really cared about. And then it was like a tsunami around me of attention and interviews and photographs and energies that I had never experienced before. It was quite something. And I was just 21. So it was pretty amazing. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, so I'm just going to invite people, anybody that has anything they want to share with Leigh, have questions, have a discussion about, just do the little hand raise. The first one is Joni Klingen, so you're up.
Yay. Hi, Joni.
Hi, wonderful Leigh. What a treat. So, wow. I had an appointment and I just walked in kind of late and I didn't hear your intro. And I thought, boy, if I get a chance to share with Leigh, I will do so much.
Here we are.
Well, I just asked for the light for this. I have a family situation, a family karmic situation that I just think I would so love to hear how you work with this sort of thing and what your advice would be or how you would support it. So I've spent the last 40 years working with our beloved travelers to work through family karma, the patterns that I saw throughout my family. And I love where I've come, and I've loved watching my siblings, my children, everyone sort of clearing this particular karma that we dealt with. And over the years, one of my daughters has really struggled with it. And when she was little, John just took her in his arms and carried her through addiction, through all sorts of things. He he looked out for her in the most beautiful way. And I know she's in a really good place and I know she's really happy. No, that's not true. I don't think she's very happy. I just see her holding on to this karmic pattern and identifying it and being aware of it and talking about how the family did it, but holding on to it like it's her lifeline. And I can't speak to her about it. That's actually one of the very clearly articulated rules. I can't speak to her about it. And all I can do is love her. And how do you work with, what are your thoughts about that? Other than love her, what do I do to let her know that, to let her be who she is, and to also recognize that the rest of us are really working hard not to be engaged with that particular karmic pattern? That's really what it is. How do I love her for who she is and really stay fully detached from that karmic pattern?
I think for me, you've identified your answers. They wouldn't be dissimilar to my own. I have numerous family karmic patterns that have been also a lifelong journey. Some of them blood, family, karmic patterns, and some of them relationship patterns that have been my teachers, all of it. I have a relationship with a sibling that I had to do something very similar, something so dear to me. And, but I had to let go. I had to let go of the blood roll and any idealization about what that was supposed to be, or what I was supposed to be in relationship to what the world says that is and I should be. It was all about what you've just identified, to love this person just as they are and really look at my expectations of how I would like it to be. And expectations are subtle. To me, in my experience, they were kind of part of the karma. And as I did more and more work, in my case, I realized that a lot of the expectations were theirs, and that I was dancing with it as if it was really my responsibility. Because I think I have quite a big thing about responsibility. Because I was given it very young. I was caretaker for an Alzheimer's grandmother who was always at home. She was never put somewhere else. And I understood what it was to caretake, to serve very young, but also to love that service, but to feel very responsible to it. Like if I could make it better, doggone it, I was going to show up and I'm going to do my best to make it better. And then maybe they don't want that.
Yeah.
And so where I do some of my deepest work in areas of attachment and karmic relationship, or especially family patterns, is somewhere between 4 and about 6 in the morning. I have a very amazing time that I have developed as if it's a garden with spirit, where my prayer is, Lord, show me. I'm willing, whatever it is, I'm surrendered to it. If I'm off and I'm blind, show me, help me see what this is. It's not always very comfortable. And as time has progressed, it has gotten deeper and deeper in the seeing, in what I'm shown. And again, sometimes it's old but I'm asking for what's on me, not what will change them. But what is mine to see, to let go of, to offer. And I try to follow very closely. It isn't always impeccable, but it is a time where it's a laboratory for me to kind of look at the karmas. And boy, oh boy, having it be an agenda and an intention that where can I change? Where can I elevate? Where can I make a different choice? What would it look like? I find I'm on very good ground, but again, it's not necessarily been very comfortable when it's been one where I just didn't see it. And I get to see it. And then it's like, yikes, look how I set that in motion, or look how I created that, or wow, okay, Lord, what can I do to sort of unravel here and bring it back where the hearts are open and it's flowing, and I'm flowing, and they're receiving the flowing. This month's Sat, I think, has from Jer enormous keys about clearing heaven, kind of like how we can liberate that other person with forgiving them and forgiving ourselves. And where maybe, let's say they said terrible things to you, and Jer mentions this, then they're kind of hostage to their creation, and we can release them by forgiving ourselves, but forgiving them. And I just don't think this ever stops. So whether it's a child or a sibling or a parent still alive, this is such rich territory for us to liberate ourselves. So anyway, those are my thoughts. And
Thank you. Thank you.
It's very helpful. I really appreciate it.
And anytime I'm yours.
I know.
I'm your friend.
I know. All right,
Thank
love you. Thank you.
Okay, so we have Carol Jones.
Hi, Carol.
Hi, Leigh. It's so good to be with you. You always bring so much joy wherever you go. It's
Oh,
just and this wonderful way you have of just embracing whoever's in front of you. And I love when I get in front of you so I can receive and give of that embrace. So beautiful. I had a counseling recently with a really beautiful counselor who said something to me that seems like it's opening up a whole new era in my life. And it was about that I don't necessarily know what to do, but God knows what to do. And if I can embrace that and open myself to God's message, then a different spectrum of resources come to my aid, he said. And oh, that was just so encouraging. I can't tell you, because I feel I've been stuck for just nearly all my life in the attachment I have to this current person, what that person represents in my life. So I wonder if you have any experiences or you could share with me what you would do to open up to God's, knowing that God has the answer, and to follow that and to let go of resistance and attachment.
what a big question. Resistance and attachment. And, I think we're all in divine practice. I mean, and the beauty of us as a family is maybe some of us kind of get a handle on a certain kind of karmic situation, a certain kind of, and we learn things that we really can share that might be rich for our friend if they're in something. I mean, attachment and where relationships and attachment to what they provide for us is, again, another, if that's what you're saying, what they fill in us, or we feel that we're looking for to fill in us. Is that in the ballpark of what you're asking?
It's I think I don't know the answer to that, Leigh, but what comes to mind to say is that I finally have come to the realization that this particular relationship is teaching me, and it's not there for me to change that person or make it more like what I want, and because I certainly can't do that. But I have the opportunity to change myself, and this at the precipice of where do I go with that?
Well, first of all, it's a beautiful precipice, I think, to have that understanding that your job is not to change this person to make it more of what you would like, according to whatever your standards are or your ideals are, or what, and that's rich content to take a look at. What attachments do you have of how it's supposed to look to suit your vision of relationship, or how the person should be for it to match some ideal scene? I think that's very rich for our own growth, is to really take good looks. And if you've got the right person at the right time, they're going to teach it to you, because we're not in control. And if you're lucky, you get somebody who doesn't want to be controlled, and that's not what it is. It's as JR and John say, we're learning, ing, to love what things are as they are, and to dance with it rather than being disillusioned, disappointed, disturbed, upset, depressed, and on. More thank you, because it turns back to your enrichment of yourself, whether that person is ever there at all. So that's the teachings, and we have the tools for that kind of fullness that's beyond understanding. God supplies it. And the more yes, it's asking as a practice, it's listening as a marriage to that asking, to listen and mean it, really mean it. I really mean it. I want to hear what you're telling me, Lord. And then seeing how it works for you to follow and implement it. What my experience with myself is, when I just don't know what to do, I just get in my chair and go to God and just let that be enough for my learning and growth at that moment. Never disappoints me. God always gives us what we need, even if it sounds like nothing in that moment. What the benefit we're getting is we're reaching to it. Even if we don't hear anything, that movement to ask, to reach is connection. And I think relationships are the greatest. My beloved husband is the greatest teacher I could have ever asked for in this life. And he's just amazing. I've learned so much. It hasn't always been comfortable. He's outstanding sometimes at allowing it to be uncomfortable. And I get to work with it. And it always is working towards loving him more rather than loving him less, because he isn't doing it the way I want him to do it. It's like, wow, what a moment this is for me. I may not get this that fast. I'm a human being, so it might take me a little while, but that's my intention. I really want to keep learning how to love whatever it is. And I just don't think that's easy for us, because it doesn't mean we have to let go of standards. Certainly doesn't mean that we let go of boundaries. That's another dance to be aware of. They're very important, taking care of ourselves. And sometimes it isn't pretty. It isn't romantic or what, but it's speaking truthfully with as much love as possible so that you're heard and you speak. So I just don't think there's a formula for how everything's supposed to work out and how we're supposed to do it. I think in a way, if we can relax into that there isn't one, we're relaxing into the arms of spirit and not having to know everything, not having to know what we're supposed to do or know how it's supposed to be. But we're on a magical journey with the Lord and with our beloveds. Some days we think we know what's going on, and other days I think we don't have a clue. And that's okay. We don't have to know. That's really okay. We don't have to know. Anyway, I don't know if that's helpful.
Well, all of it is helpful. And what comes to mind is my real precipice is is about surrendering my sense of security or my sense of how to be loved into spirit and to let go of trying to find that outside myself.
That's it, honey. That you just said it. You've got it. You know it. You know this is exactly what this is your prescription.
Yeah.
Diagnosis and prescription. You've got it. You know it. It's like when we try to make that out there, kind of what is going to be comfortable for us to know we're loved, we're setting ourselves up.
Yeah.
It's a setup. And it usually has got a lot of disappointment in it. And then that can go to separation and all kinds of things that don't work.
Right.
You would know it by now if that worked. And so the finger's always pointing back to us. And we've been assured by the travelers, absolutely assured that it's within us. So that's the magical mystery road, the yellow brick road. It's inside. And it can be done in all kinds of ways. It can be done in SCs, listening to JR, reading a great book, quiet time. Just even, I've been on my knees in my closet. I remember many significant moments in my life when I was on my knees in my closet, and that was the best place I knew to be, to get a handle.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with it. It's surrender. Something bigger knows better than you.
Yeah. Thank you, Leigh.
Thank you, darling. I love you.
I love you too. Thank you so much.
so wonderful. Ambassador for Movement Monday, Catherine Corona is up next.
Oh, boy. Hi.
Hi.
My glasses on so I can really see you, sweetheart.
Oh, I just love you.
I
And
love-
and you're so inspiring. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, honey. Thank you for being with me. I love seeing you. I haven't seen you since Bulgaria.
Yes.
You did good. You did good.
Down and up again.
That's right. It was a high state of cooperation is what you demonstrated.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. That means a lot. That means a lot because it was a challenge. And JR once told me that cooperation was one of my main things of karma.
Uh-huh,
Lifetime karma was cooperation.
uh-huh.
So maybe I learned a little bit all
Well,
these years.
sure. That's the word that came to my mind, and that's what I experienced because that wasn't easy. And for me, you did a great job.
Ah, thank you. That means a lot and probably clears the rest of the karma of that trip. So thank you.
There you go.
Well, I wanted to ask you, I think you couldn't be the more perfect person to ask about expression.
Uh-huh.
And, just personally, I too was a person that a child that didn't talk very much. And even today, I find myself hesitating in expression. And I also am aware that there's many places to express from. I mean, I don't want to express from my basic self a lot of times because that's just not, I mean, there are times to go play and things like that, but there are times that I guess I struggle from the place of expression. Always I want to express from God consciousness, if that's possible. But anyway, that's just what I wanted to say as a background. And I would love to hear anything you have to say about expression.
Well, what's coming to my mind as you're talking is I was being shown like a little movie of moments where I was sort of Leigh, like Jesus in the temples, turning up the tables and throwing things around. That, John witnessed one of them where it was so explosive. Angels witnessed another version of it in Argentina where I took on a customs inspection.
Oh,
I think everybody thought I was going to be thrown in an Argentinian jail. It could have happened and I was ready, so expression just is something to love about being human. It isn't always this perfect thing. We aspire to love and light, that is our way. That is our way. That's the foundation of expression. Of course, you want to speak from God consciousness. And there's all kinds of parts to us that have moments that are other than that. And my consideration is I look back at some of those and I saw how valuable the ones that were less appealing to me, especially. Others, sure, I'm sure, but to me, as a self-judgment, I look back at them and I went, wow, that really had a purpose because of the change that came about as a result was often better. And it was as if I said, wow, it's not a bypass, but at times I feel like I've been used in different ways to be other than just the love and the light. It's love and light, but it could be noisy. I mean, there's a lot of ways to express. I think the key is that if we've hurt anybody, that's where we make amends. And we really make amends. Spirit will show us that, where it's time to make amends. If you were blind, unconscious, whatever, and you spoke from a place that didn't serve anything. And and all of us have done that in a lifetime. And so it's always a great opportunity to say, oh, I could have done that better, and I'm going to go and I'm going to make it right. I've heard a tape of JR's recently where he was saying, there are times that I do not speak well, and I go the next day and I clean it up. And then I forgive myself and it's done, it's gone, and I move on. And I loved hearing it because it was really a saying to me, a demonstration. I love my human expression. It comes in all different colors, qualities, and moments. My main agenda is to uplift and love people. And sometimes it's either a falling, a failing, or it's a some kind of other kind of functionality to make a change. We have to be willing for it all, but to come always back to that loving place that's either going to say, I'm sorry, I love you, wowie zowie, did I mess up? Or whatever it is, but it's all part of the loving. It's not a condemnation. It's not a, you're a bad person, or you're a stuck person, or you can't speak, self-judgment that has a point of view, like, what's wrong with you? You never speak up at the right moments, or you're always hesitant. You always think of the right thing to say too late, or whatever these little things are. If anything about those kind of voices, just be aware of them. Just get super duper aware. That's a blessing to yourself. Super duper aware where you're saying things to yourself. If Jesus said, when you do it unto me, when you do it unto them, you do it unto me. I remember that was my whole DSS treatise was, wow, if I do it unto me, I'm doing it unto the Christ within. So why would I want to hurt me with limited, mean-spirited, restrictive statements that just really aren't true? Maybe they're just a moment in time. Maybe they are a pattern that you're working on. Doesn't need condemnation, doesn't need restriction, doesn't need judgment. And that again is a lifelong process. You know, for me, I love catching myself. Sometimes I'm just slow on the draw. And sometimes I go, oh, look at that, I get excited. I did that, I see what I did. And I can then take account for it. And that's exciting. Even if it means making amends or doing writing or doing whatever, or giving something in loving as a way of saying, this is my offering of who I really am. So I think our expression is a gift, whatever it is, always, always to be loved and forgiven and cherished and encouraged, and to kind of adore your expression. It's Catherine's expression. It goes with that smile and that face and that life you've lived. It's worthy, deeply worthy, because here you are. There's nothing unworthy about your expression. Maybe you're the one who's deciding it's not up to some standard, but maybe that's just you doing that. And that's the only place you're going to do the work is, you know what, I'm going to take that cap off of me and that, you know, that belt, what do they call those, you know, where they tie people up? I'm just going to take that off and ask Spirit to take it off and JR to take it off and John to take it off. I'm going to work to take it off and let's see who I am. Oh boy, an adventure.
It
Have
feels
fun.
like it's just being ripped off, Leigh. So
So let us all see what it's like without it. You know, I think it's fun and I just don't think it couldn't be anything bad.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. I mean, I really did, as you were talking, I saw where it started. I saw the exact moment it started in childhood. It just came to me. I got the vision and I felt like, oh, I'm getting goosebumps now, the walls cracking and crumbling.
There you go.
So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, darling. Anytime. All in the light.
All in the light.
I love you. Thank you.
I love you too.
See you soon.
Okay, we have Sylvia. Sylvia, if you would like to unmute.
Yes, Sylvia. Hey, Leigh. Thank you so much for making yourself available.
Hi, honey.
Hi. You know, in the years that I've had the pleasure to know you, I've always heard you talk with such deep love and admiration for your very much dedicated acting career. And I would like to ask you if you can define it. Part of it was answered through your answer to Catherine, but what's your biggest takeaway as an actress? And maybe something spiritual, has nothing to do, because if there's a person that I see so dedicated also to your loving God and growing. So here's it is. What's your biggest takeaway, my lovely Leigh?
From acting, you
Yes.
said? Huh?
Yeah.
Oh,
From,
my.
from your dedication, deep love and dedication to acting.
Well, one of my favorite takeaways that, of course, sometimes our awarenesses are clearest in retrospect, right? And I acted 2 years ago after 15 years, I think almost. And I couldn't believe how, and it was difficult because it was in COVID. We had to wear masks, big plastic masks to rehearse in just before action. Then they're removed and you do the scene. And then you have everything else that's going on. You have 150 people in front of you, moving lights, moving this. And then when they say action, it's as if no one is there. And I think my biggest takeaway from acting is I love it. I love the process. I love the people. They're kind of wild and crazy because they're very artistic and they have a lot of freedom, natural freedom. But I think one of the greatest takeaways is the discipline that I learned in acting. You know, I don't know if people realize what the job of an actor is and what the life of it is when you're either in a series or it's a movie. Maybe it's only 1 week. But it's like being in the military, and whatever your views of the military are, it's very like that. You are not late. I don't care where you drive from. It's a no excuses job. So you can't say, oh, well, I'm having a bad day, I'm not coming, or I don't finding no, sick. You know, it's sort of like the Pony Express, you know, it could be raining, whatever. If you're sick, you don't want to make anybody sick, you don't go. But you show up. So it's a show up job. And then you have to be aware and on your toes from the moment you're arriving. You're being responsible to your makeup. You're responsible, did they get the hair right? You're responsible, did they do the alterations of your wardrobe correctly? You're connecting with the first assistant director about what time we're doing rehearsal on stage. You're aware in a multi-dimensional way, in a very acute way. It's not a lazy profession. There are some who've made it lazy. I've worked with lazy actors, and what they do is they kind of pull the vibration of the collective project down a bit. I've always been one, I'm going to hold that standard. And I really have held to that. I had almost a 50-year career and I held to that. So learning my lines, there's a lot of actors who think, I don't need to learn every line off the page and I'll get it in rehearsal. No way. You have too much to think about the day you arrive. You better have every line off the page, in my humble opinion. It serves everybody. They don't have to carry you around and give you a crutch that brings everybody down. So it's a tremendously responsible and dedicated job. And in terms of the word dedication, if you're not dedicated to it in that way, I don't think you'll last very long. You either won't keep your job, you will get a less than professional reputation. You're in a collective. Every production is like a little mini city. It's a minimum of 150 people on the set. And that's from grips to lighting to everybody checking and every single one of those 150 people is geared to one intent: to get the shoot done that day really with excellence as much as possible. So everybody, whether they're wardrobe or lights or grip carrying a table, That's their intent. So it's very interesting to be in a tribe where everybody is sharing the same agenda.
Mm.
Doesn't mean that they don't have personal agendas. They're human. There's many times that there's a lot of personal agenda. But essentially, everybody's kind of held to the greater agenda is do a good job, get the job done. And that's an amazing thing to share with the cast and crew. That's why when you see the Golden Globes or you see, they thank the crew, they thank everybody, because everybody's involved with making that product. That I miss.
Mhm.
It isn't that we don't have it in MSIA, but on a movie set, it's all there at once, every day. You know, you're operating on all these levels every day. And you go home and you learn the lines. If you have a big job or a big role on Peyton Plays that we talked about earlier, that I don't think anybody's tried to do since. We shot 90 minutes a week, which if you told people in the industry, they almost wouldn't believe it. I often had to go home and learn 20 pages of dialogue in a night.
Wow.
And go to the set the next morning at 6 a.m. sharp and be ready. So it's a job of dedication, devotion, flexibility. You better be really flexible because you're dealing with a lot of personalities. And if you ever want to be in a situation where you're learning goodwill techniques, it's the greatest laboratory in the world. Because if you're people like you, me, where we have the light, we make a big difference, even if we say nothing whatsoever. So I always love the opportunity to do that. Another answer to that question, for the first, I would say, I'm going to guess a number, maybe 25 years of my career. My personal agenda was I wanted the success of it. I wanted to do a great job. I wanted to get the next great part. I wanted, you know, it had goals and aspiration and all of that, which sets you up for a lot of disappointment because it's a business of rejection. As its shadow side is rejection is kind of the shadow you walk with all the time. When you audition, you half the time you don't know why you didn't get it, and you knew you were what you knew in your heart you were great. Too short, too tall, wrong color hair. You never know because those people choosing you, they have their agenda. Maybe they don't like you, or maybe they, you know, you just, there's always this unknown quality. So what I was going to say is that agenda changed very dramatically as I became more spiritually committed, that I just wanted to serve anywhere I was. I didn't care as much about, I cared always about the work, art, doing a great job and being disciplined and all that. But my nature shifted to where I just wanted to be of service in the role, in the crew, in everything. That became my greater agenda than making it in some way. So thank you for asking. It was fun.
No, thank you. I knew the answer was going to be more general than acting, and acting too, because I appreciate your love, and I'm so happy that you're the great woman that you are. And I love you.
I love you too. I want to say one other thing about acting.
Yeah.
2 years ago, maybe it was less, a year and a half ago, I did a series called American Gigolo. Not quite what I was expecting. And I was working with John Bernthal, who was the American Gigolo. And one of the keys that makes acting really a high experience, if you get to work with an actor or actress, either one, who is as committed as I've described, you soar because you both know you love the work. You both know you're working to find the beats, the moments between, and you're just flying with the creativity. Then that creativity isn't lugging somebody who doesn't know their lines, and you have to get through that to get to the creativity. You're soaring, you're flying because you've done your work. Now the architecture is there, and you let go and you invite spirit. And those are the moments of the creative process for me that are just fantastic.
Oh, sounds like where two or more are gathered, there I am. And thank you, because you've given me a lot of keys for my life while you were sharing. So thank you. Love you.
Okay, the beautiful Bina Sin. Bina Sina.
Hi, thank you.
Venus.
Oh my God, I'm talking to Leigh.
Gosh, it's good to see you.
Yeah, it's always good to see you.
It's been a while. I've seen you in person since I've seen you in person.
Yeah, I think so. I haven't thought when it was, but
We're gonna see you
I
soon.
think at a retreat.
Yeah.
I remember you walking up to me, if you remember that.
Yes, I do.
I don't relate to you as an actress. You were just this woman who showed up all of a sudden in MSIA at all the events next to John Morton, around with him. And I know you as this person from your sharing yourself of being full of love and joy, and you're just one of the most amazing people I know, because and what I really love is that whenever I see you, which isn't often, but whenever I do see you online and everything, you're always happy. And I don't know, I'm judging my question because there's an obvious answer, but what is it you do? Because I know life is challenges for me. And it's like one thing after another. And I'm also dealing with depression, but aside from that, and my question is, what is your secret that you're always happy and in this loving light way? You know, what is the secret? I mean, I know about spiritual exercises and stuff like that, but what is it that comes up within you to answer to me that, what is it that you're doing that you're often in this mood of being so happy and loving and expanded?
Well, let's see. First of all, I'm not deprived of any challenges. I mean, if I ever wrote a book that was just about my life's challenges, it would be telling of a journey to climb a mountain out of it. I've had a lot of things that have been, but here's what I see, Venusina, about it. It has been my thruster, is I don't want to stay there. I really don't. I don't know if that's a survival instinct. I don't know if I just know what the happiness and the joy is that's better for me. I like it. I love it. I love to love. I love loving. Well, we know it doesn't just show up and then you're loving. Sometimes it is really work to find that place to get it moving. But I think I have a nature that has an organic leaning to joy and play. The playfulness of life. I mean, I've seen a lot of violence. I've seen a lot of abuse. I've seen a lot of addiction. And I've seen, and a lot of it, some of it towards me in my life. And it didn't define me. On some level, I was not going to let it define me. That who I am, I have to find it more maybe, but and then just doing the next loving thing or seeing a beautiful thing and appreciating it. Animals have always been healing for me. Animals are so innocent. They just love you so unconditionally. And the world is not by nature unconditionally loving. I'm sure we've all noticed, but we can work to be that. And it's so internally satisfying. We're the ones that get the benefit. It looks like it's directed to unconditionally love that world out there. But the fact is, when you start developing that place inside, you give yourself permission to play more. That's why I love to tell jokes. It's kind of like I don't claim any great gift in this, but I think it's fun to try and find something that makes us laugh. JR knew how to do this. You know, JR was not deprived of challenge or againstness towards him, or forms of kind of psychic violence, whether in this world or others, negative power. But don't we relate to him a lot as he was a real character? No, he knew how to crack a stupid, silly joke and enjoy it more than maybe anybody else was enjoying. And that's half of it, or more of it than half. But I do think I have an inclination to a buoyant nature. And I like to give. I like to make people happy.
Yeah.
That was with me just right from the get-go of my life. With my Alzheimer's grandmother, who people negated and whatever because she wasn't sort of right in her mind. I just wanted to make her happy and see her smile. And I knew how to do that. I would comb her hair or I would tickle her. It was anything to create that energy. And then when I'd see a result that I could help that keeps you going in that direction. I extended that instinct to my pets. I had this wonderful dog named Copper. I love this dog more than anything. And Copper was having a birthday. At least we thought it was his birthday. So I just couldn't wait to have a party for Copper, the dog. So I sent out invitations to all the neighbor dogs, birthday invitation. I decorated the house. I had doggy treats, everything. I was so excited, creating a happy thing. My dog wouldn't let any of the dogs in the house. He just growled and barked like he was going to tear them apart. Not one dog. I said, this is your party, but the joy in the party was just creating it. So the result really didn't end up being the point. The point became my process with it. And that's where I think people get stuck in unhappiness and things, is they're still looking a little bit at the world to respond to them, with a kindness or a giving or a whatever. And our circumstances can be really tough. So it's like, in really tough circumstances, how do I do that? But humans are very creative. They can find a way. They can leave a little thing outside someone's door with a little happy sign, without who it is. Maybe it gives a lift to their day. But it's like learning how to make you happy, doing happy things. Usually when you think, oh, I want to give something to somebody or something and have a happy moment, then you build a bank account. Start building that nature. It's like architecture. It's like bricks, but you're the one contributing to the building of that buoyancy. It's not going to come because everybody does what you want, or the world gives you what you want. It's not going to come that way. If it does, wow, it's a treat, but then it goes. But what doesn't go is your willingness to contribute to your happiness, sometimes in the silliest, goofiest little ways. And, I didn't realize this, but like with my granddaughters, when they were little, I used to play with them with voices. We'd create voices. Children are one of the best ways to learn some of this, that childlike nature.
Yeah, I'm a teacher, so
Well, you watch them.
Yeah.
They can be so upset and have just a fit. 5 minutes later, it's over and
They're
done.
on to the next.
There's something to be learned there.
Yeah.
So watch these children, let them teach you. You could
Yeah.
even ask your children, you could say, kids, I am having a really tough day. I would like your advice. And what would you suggest if you, when you're having a really tough day, what would you do? What would you tell me that you do? And invite that, you might learn a thing or two.
Yeah, I think I'll try that one day.
But
Because
it's,
what amazed me was like they would be crying 1 minute and the next minute they're happily playing. You know, they forget about it.
Yeah.
And it's not in their head what happened 5 minutes ago. And someone said to me it's because their brains aren't fully developed or something.
I
I
wouldn't
don't
go with that. I wouldn't
Oh,
go with that at all. That just is like a, pushes you away from taking the jewel that's there.
yeah, I was amazed. I'm amazed that that's the one of the most amazing things about children is their natural joy.
Their natural joy. And
Yeah.
it's something to really kind of study because, you know, children get challenged by maybe
Mhm.
their parents aren't loving, maybe their siblings aren't loving, maybe who knows what, but they still have a connection to that childlike nature, which has wonder in it. Do you ever take a walk and tell yourself in your spirit, show me wonder. I want to have some wonder on this walk, God. And look at a bird.
I have to get more in connection and conversation with God.
Well, that would
Where
help.
I'm actually having a conversation, like show me as I walk.
Absolutely.
Like
You
he's
know,
more
God's your
present.
partner.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you've said things, by the way. I don't watch the everyday thing that you do, the blessings each day, I think it's called, because I work from 8 to 6 and but I did catch it a few times and I'm more able to sometimes now. But whatever. I haven't been catching it because I work so much. And you once mentioned something about how you listen to JR all night. Like whenever you say these little tips, I listen and I was like, oh, I wonder, like I do that, not all the time. Do you
Yeah.
do it every night?
Well, you could ask my husband, he'd probably say yes. And he does too. I mean, I'm going to speak in the we, but I'll say it for myself. I think we have a real regard for nighttime being a very sacred time with the Lord. And so
Oh,
what we do is prime the pump, kind of. It doesn't mean we don't sleep. We do sleep,
right.
but it's kind of such a pleasure to hear JR and to maybe call in the light and let the Lord have us. And for me, that's a great nourishment in my life. Just as John's, I have the benefit and highest level of interest in John's sharings, and I drink deeply from that well. I'll tell you, I'm not good at thinking about being in this world without immersion in the traveler's teachings.
Yeah, that's what I get that you do.
That's my go-to everything. And
It amazes me that you do it because you travel a lot. I was amazed. One day you're Japan, next day you're Australia, and then South America. It's like there's got to be some consistency, with the relating with spirit.
Yeah.
And I know it's SEs and listening to the.
it's just that attunement, and attunement's a practice. It's not that somebody's more gifted at it than somebody else, because I don't believe that. I think it's a choice. And
Mhm.
I make that choice because I like living life better that way. I
Yeah.
think this is not an easy life. JR never said it was an easy life. John never
Uh-huh.
said it was. But how we deal with it to make it better for ourselves, it is our choice.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of creativity in what we choose. Now, these are my choices. It doesn't mean they should be other people's choices.
No, they're just options and
They're
whatever
options.
works.
I just got this flash of seeing you. When you enter, do you enter a children's classroom?
What do you
When
mean
you work,
enter?
like when you go in the morning, do you open a door to go into a classroom?
No, yes, I do go in. I open the school and I greet them
Okay.
at the door, and then I walk into the class. So, I put the like column,
Oh, you're just, it's just wonderful. I just think how blessed those children are to walk in your field.
yeah, I mean, they don't know it, and I don't think big ego about it, but I just do like place the like column and send light to their situations and their parents and their work.
Do you like funny movies?
Sometimes I haven't seen movies in a while. I mean, I do watch Netflix and that kind of thing, and I've been taking my nephews to like, Mario Brothers kind of thing, superhero movies, but I haven't seen comedy in a while. I used to I'm thinking of Adam Sandler. Didn't he have funny movies?
I
Yeah,
love his movies because he's so dopey,
yeah,
so silly. And I really think there's a great thing about silly. Silly
yeah,
is freedom, and it just makes fun of our humanness, and he's really good at silly. Those
yeah,
I think those would be fun movies for you.
to
Just a
watch.
thought.
Yeah.
Well, honey, I love you. God bless
Thank
you.
you so much.
And I hope I get to hug and see you soon.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna go to the New York events because I'm working and then I serve my father dinner and my mother. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Definitely gonna watch online, but I
Okay.
might show up in person. But it would be good to see you whenever I see you.
Me too.
It's always good seeing you online.
Thank you. I love you.
And
so
hello,
much.
everybody who's out there.
Yes, we have family with us. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Bye, darling.
Bye.
Okay, so we have Linda next, and then Marisa and Steve after that.
Okay. Hi.
I'm sorry, Cindy. My mistake. I called you Linda. I don't know why. Cindy Lovejoy.
Okay. Hey, how are you doing? I wish I knew you better, but I just love you dearly. You make
I
me,
love you too. I've just known you forever.
we don't have a lot of interaction, but I just always feel beautiful when I'm around you.
Oh,
Question is your challenges. Like, what is it like to be the wife and live with John Morton and travel everywhere and always have something that has to happen or do or changes or flow with, really strange things? What is all that like?
oh my goodness. Well, I just feel so blessed. I feel so blessed. I mean, first of all, I'm dearly and deeply in love with my husband, and that's the great place to start, because then it's sort of like everything becomes part of it in one way or another. Because I was so well trained in the sense of dedication to these teachings with John Roger, it helped me so much to realize what I was choosing. I was choosing a level of dedication that was sublime,
Way up there, yes.
way up there. And John and I love to tell the story early in our relationship. Maybe it was a week or two. It was pretty early. I had this riveting dream, meaning it was all in color and it was super clear. And he and I were meandering down this beautiful pathway, like in a meadow. It was like Song of the South. Birds were singing and it was just beautiful. And we veered to the right, and all of a sudden in front of us was a gigantic mountain straight up. And he calmly looked, and I'm like taking it. It happened so suddenly. And he looked at me and he reached out his hand and he said, "Are you ready?" And I took his hand, and in typical John Morton fashion, he started running up this mountain. But he did not let go of my hand, and I was like running, I was stumbling, but like in a dream where everything works, kind of. Even though I stumbled and fell, I still somehow was going forward, regaining my equilibrium, and I'm running. And I think that is a metaphor for the life I have. We're holding hands, it's my beloved, and here's the mountain, and I'm running. So it's a beautiful life. It's very, I feel so fortunate at my age to have as many opportunities to be where I have to be flexible, show up. You know, thank God I had a military and movie background. It really prepared me a lot for the discipline that's required. But on the other hand, we have a beautiful home. We have a beautiful cat. We love each other. We serve each other. I was raised in service. So for me, to make John his breakfast fills my heart. It just makes me happy. So I guess I'm kind of well equipped for the job. But I traveled always with my movies. Now but sometimes this last trip was pretty arduous to Australia and Japan because I got some cold. John actually got a cold. But the amazing thing is when the work was there to do, it just went away to do the work. And the minute it was over, you know what this is like. It's just, oh, I got a really bad cold. Got home, rested, and found some good help, guidance, and I'm on the road again. I'm on my road again. It's very challenging because the unexpected happens often.
Oh, it is.
So if there's any kind of attachments,
Yeah,
should
how
be,
it should be.
it's just like, they better not do that because you kind of expect the cart's going to turn over and you better like it under that cart until you fix it. I mean, it's never punishing, but it's just what it is. It's like, you're going to do that. And so I kind of love challenge. I think I did my whole life in the sense of kind of a warrior spirit. So I have it intrinsically. It's been highly developed, but I had it intrinsically. I kind of understood it. So, but it's a loving, every day it's a loving. It's, you know, when you fall off your ladder and, you know, it's like, whoa, I guess that didn't work. Or often it's something that is just moving through the traveler.
Mhm.
I'm kind of a first responder. So sometimes it kind of sounds like it has my name on it, but I see it as service because it's allowing that energy to process through. And I now understand that more.
Mhm.
So that's part of some of the things that happen. But all A to Z, it's divine.
I really get that the way are all the time when I see you with Johnny. It's just amazing to me. So it's really you really do, for me, serve as such an example of what to go for, which is to be loving all the time, flow with everything, accept what's going on, be aware, and stay tuned in.
Yeah.
It's such
And it doesn't mean I succeed at those things. It means those are my aspirations. That's my intention. And sometimes I do really silly, stupid things. It's as if I'm Inspector Clouseau and walk into a closed door. I swear, I really have a Mrs. Magoo quality. Sometimes I feel sort of sorry for John because he's very precise and sometimes I act like I didn't get the agenda that day or you know what I mean? It's in my nature. And also maybe it's my freedom nature that goes I sort of don't want to be contained today. I may get to have about an hour of that and then it's over.
then it's over.
And it's just me with me, you know, it's never.
Do you ever get time to yourself?
You know when I do, and it's very welcomed in the household. In the afternoon, I love to, first of all, there's no rules in the house about when or what I can do, which is wonderful. They're just agreements in making things go right together in the work we're both in, and certainly he is the leader. That takes all that cooperation. That cooperation takes attention. And so, but I love around 4 o'clock. I do my SCs around 4 in the morning. And then I love around 4 o'clock in the afternoon to go in my chair and have quiet time. I love to read. I go to bed around 9. And my husband works, he's a traveler. He's always working, and he says always there's playfulness. But I like to read. I've always been a reader. So I love that quiet time before sleep. And I like to learn things. So I like the History Channel, and I like to love history, love to read. I usually read about 4 books at once, and it's such a thrill. And then we have a lot of time, a wonderful time together. But it's a dance. It's like, is it a waltz? Is it a salsa? Is it a tango? Is it a circus? Is it, it's got a lot of color to it.
Well, thanks for sharing all that. It just makes it more real.
Real. Thank you.
Oh,
Love you.
that's marvelous. Okay, so I just want to be respectful of your time, Leigh. We have 2 more Hollywood squares with the hands up. Are you okay for us to go ahead and do that?
Absolutely.
Oh, wait, that
okay.
makes, now it's 3 because I gave a last call for alcohol.
Where is
So, so are you okay to keep going for a little while?
Uh-huh.
Okay, all right, so Stephen Mariza, you're next.
Hi, Leigh, how are you?
Fine. How are you?
Thank you. My preface, of course, is that Janet asked me to do some research, to make sure I had some questions ready, because we're sort of the nominal hosts. So I was reading through some of the stuff, historical and all, and I was so touched and moved by this. One of the interviews on your website, it's called Dance with Grace, and you're talking about your earlier, like in the 60s and stuff, when you really maybe just I can tell, from your sharing today, your spiritual path, was from birth, but there was maybe more consciously entering a kind of a spiritual search or whatever, and you were kind of doing some stuff, and maybe it was your time with Sivananda in India, but the quote that I really want to get to is, you said, "I had fallen in love with God." And I just, that really jumped out at me, and I just wondered if you could maybe talk about that a little.
Well, who else better to fall in love with?
Yeah.
I would say that's pretty accurate about, number one, my nature, but also just it's true for me. And I'm sure it's true for all of us. We might do it in different ways. We might say it in different ways. For me, that statement you're sharing with me is very Leigh. It's it happened on the level of where that might have come out of me. And I'm trying to think back. I'm thinking around 1970, where my marriage at the time, it was a very difficult time, because my husband was publicly very unfaithful. I was away doing a movie. I come back, I'm facing that in a very public way, the papers, the magazine, you name it. And I just left. I left LA. I took my son, I moved to New Mexico, and to process. And what happened in New Mexico immediately was my attunement and sensitivity to what had been with me very young and onwards, that got a little, not disconnected, but maybe more to the side in my early days of working in Hollywood and the movies and that life. It was just so involving, getting married, having a baby. Just returned like huge presence. And it was in that period that I just felt this almost a cathartic surrender to loving God, and feeling that it wasn't just some nameless anything, invisibility. It was real, it was active, it was palpable, it was returning. And so it was that, and always has been since then. It's taken different expressions, it's in my service now. It's in my love of John. It was in my love with JR and Muktananda, men of God, family of God. And yet in the midst of it, I wasn't spared family karma and next job, how to pay the bills, the insurance company, all the things that we deal with on a 10% level. But this became my driving life. The driving definition was that in loveness.
Yeah.
And that's the same today, I think.
Yeah.
It comes and goes. I mean, I'm sure all of us have had moments where it's a training or it's John speaking or something, or be moments with where it's just almost overwhelming. It's so full.
Yeah. Was JR the first of the sound current teachers for you, or was there any of that before?
No, he was the first of the sound current. And I had the blessing of, well, I had early study with not Yogananda in his body, but Kriya Yoga, Yogananda, SRF, Self-Realization Fellowship. I did some transcendental meditation, but that, was good because it got me into the discipline of meditation. When I met Muktananda, that was a powerful experience. He was a Siddha yogi, so he could just look you in the eye and he'd give you Twaji. And first time he did that to me, I fell over like a log and I didn't come back for about 4 hours. They had to drag me out of the meditation room in the dark. I was just gone. So maybe that wasn't sound current, but it sure was something. And he was very awakening to me about the idea that we are all God. I became very familiar with that envisioning and understanding inside myself that we really are all God. And it's a mistaken perception to think anybody's less than God. They just may not be expressing it, but that's what's really going on. Muktananda was very awakening in that way. JR loved Muktananda. He had great love and affection for him. So it was a very beautiful transition. And this is mystically interesting. When I got initiated by Muktananda, there were always a long line. Many of us who might have met him or got Om Namah Shivaya as their tone at that time. When I came to get Om Namah Shivaya, he didn't give me Om Namah Shivaya. He was giving it to thousands of people in a line, or 100 or whatever. He gave me a different tone. And I thought immediately, oh, something's not quite prepared for me. I got the remedial tone. And then later, when I came with JR, it's our mental tone.
Oh.
And he told me at one point that I was destined for a very high journey, but he didn't say much more than that. But he was high mental, but he just turned so many people on, and I just loved him dearly. And I introduced JR to Baba. I had a what do we call, like a satsang.
Uh-huh.
And I said to JR, Baba's approved me to have this. Would you like to come? It was my early days with JR. And I said, do you, I don't know the protocol. Do you want a chair as high as Baba's? And JR just started belly laughing. He said, I'm sitting on the floor with everybody else. And so he sat at Baba's feet on the boys' side, because that's what they do in India. And I sat at Baba's feet on the girls' side. And JR later told me it was then that Baba passed all my karma to JR.
Wow.
He was waiting for JR. So, wow.
Yeah, that's a perfect setup for one other thing. And because you just talked about JR demonstrating ordinariness, and I'm going to be just like, and so that's such a core to the teachings. And I wonder if, I don't know if this is going to sound rude, and I don't intend it to, Leigh, but like what's the challenge of you could probably demonstrate ordinariness as a teaching. I mean, you're somebody who's been famous, or probably still are famous. I think of you as Leigh, so I don't have that attachment to the famous thing, but you, you've been famous, you're married, to whatever the things you could say, you must be very, very special, and yet you're talking about and demonstrating this core teaching of the travelers about ordinariness is next to God.
Well, I am married to the most divine man who's also very ordinary. And he's a great teacher of that dance between the two. What it reminds me of is JR once said about someone who I won't name. He said where they were having an issue with John's personality. And JR said, I feel really badly for them because they're confused by the personality. And they can't see clearly, or the ordinariness and the personality can't see what's really obvious is the divinity. And you know, that disguise of personality, which JR had as well as a very multi-dimensional disguise of different personality, that's the mindfulness, is that we are attuned inside to the soul energy of who we are blessed to know in the teachings and with a living traveler. So the dance between the ordinary and the extraordinary is a dance I live in. And it's a kind of an amazing gift for me as a training to never forget that, but I don't let it awe me to be in the way of my relating on a very loving human way. That would be very not workable. But I also have so deep an awareness of what this is that we're all in, that I don't forget that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you both. God bless you.
That's so lovely. We have Emily Katz.
Oh,
Leigh, hello.
hi, darling. There you are. Let me get my glasses.
Hi.
Better now.
Hi. Me too.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. I am so glad to be with you on this, Leigh. You are such, I could go through a lot of euphemisms about how fabulous you are and how much I love you. And I hope you know that it's all there. And
I love you too, honey. We have lovely history.
we do. And I want to acknowledge, first of all, what you said about working on a film set and the kind of devotion and passion and discipline that it takes to do that. For those of you who don't know, I work in film as well. I'm not an actress. But I just, Leigh, thank you for saying that. And also what I want you to know, which is why I raised my hand, was when I'm having challenging moments, of which, as I'm sure you're aware, there are many, I think, how would Leigh handle this? I really do. I really turn to your demeanor and hold in the breath before I react. How would Leigh handle this? Because to me, you have such an elegance and way of being that I really admire that, Leigh. Thank you so much for being, this really moves me to tears, for being such a wonderful role model for so many of us, and certainly for me. And because we have so much of a parallel path with many, as you know, some of the history that I've had to with problems. It's, I'm not going to take up a whole lot more of your time. I just want you to know how dearly I hold you in my heart.
Thank you, honey. I love you. Where are you right now? Are you in Hawaii?
No, I'm in Arizona.
Okay, I have to track you. Okay.
I know it's hard. It's hard. The whole Hawaiian thing. I think I told you that it turns out I've discovered that I am Hawaiian.
Yes.
Which, talk about karma. That's interesting. And and I had an interesting moment, if I can share that with you, with Mukunda back on Maui when I was 19. And I was having these very interesting karmic cosmic dreams. And I kept thinking, oh, must be Muktananda. And I went to see him, and he was very clear he was not my teacher. Very clear. And
I know how he could do that.
and I was devastated. And in a short amount of time, JR showed up, because that was who was coming to me in the dream state. And it's like, wow, Muktananda knew that all along. So
The teachers know who their own are.
They do, they
Mm-hmm.
do, and they know who goes with who too.
Ultimately. Thank you, darling. I love you.
I love you too.
See you
Leigh.
around the bend.
Yes, and hopefully sometime soon.
Yes. Thank you, honey.
Bye.
Okay, now we have Miss Shea.
Oh.
And then that will be it for the sharings, and Leigh, you can decide how you want to close, but I'm not rushing it. I'm just telling you what the parameters might be.
That's just beautiful for me.
So Leigh, you know, I don't
Thank
have anything really special. I know I love you so much.
Talk about
just-
history.
I just, as I'm sitting here, I still feel the girlfriend that I had when Yolanda and you and I hung out. And my baby unfolding in MSIA and all that, whatever all that's about, but I still feel the glory of that in
Yes,
being here.
that was
It was really precious, still precious. I mean, it's
Yeah.
still alive. And I really just, when I heard you were coming, I just wanted to be here to tell you how much I still love you and treasure you and am proud of you and with you. My whole heart and being in this process, standing in support of just the gloriousness of your choices in serving God. And I'm just so grateful to love you and to be and to know that we're still friends.
We're still friends. We have so many beautiful memories of an
Yeah.
amazing time in the beginning of MSIA. Not the beginning like 60s, but the early 70s in those seminars and being together, and Craig and all a very beautiful group that many are past now. But the sweetness and the tenderness was just as good as today.
Yeah, as good as today. It's a good memory. And I also, but as we were talking, when Steve said the thing about falling in love with God, something just said to say this. I felt all my life I was falling in love with God. And then in the last couple of years, it's almost that I found like the vessel that was falling in love with God had this, how would you call it? Subconscious, unconscious, energetic construction that was totally in the opposite direction of falling in love with God. So my process now is as it's cleared itself and through a series of all sorts of things, is falling in love with God through that.
You know what when you're talking about that, I'm thinking that the real journey is just being God's love. The falling in love is if it's still a bit separate. And that's a very initial part of the journey of being open and getting on the journey and the road. I think more of the fulfillment is being that, just being, becoming, but then get past the becoming and claiming the being. And that's where we're going.
And so all it's not that disappears.
Right.
Into the nothingness. And so, yeah, God bless us. I just love you so much.
See you too, darling.
See you. If you ever need anybody to work with you in any way, shape, or form, I know I'm there.
All right.
Even if it's on
Zoom.
the inside.
Okay. Or on the inside. That's better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for all your sharings. As Leigh and I discussed earlier, that we all heal together.
Yeah.
And so it's a really truly beautiful experience. I just want to, before I hand this back to Leigh, I just want to say that with all the discussion about you and your beginnings and yourself as an actress, in fact, a famous actress, and now you're a famous spokesperson to all of us in MSIA. I saw a picture with all of you guys standing in front of broken down Prana when it first got there, and I think you're standing there with a shovel.
Honestly, I'm not sure I was there at that point. I don't remember that, but I may be. That to me was that very early group, when I'm assuming this, that when Prana was first purchased, but I was there pretty quick after that. It was 73 when I really did show up.
Well,
Anyway, thank
so anyway, thank you so much for being here. This was an extraordinary night. And however you want to close and finish, we feel the grace of it. So thank you.
darling, what I'd love to do for all of us, calling forward the blessing of the traveler John and his beautiful blessings that he gives us all the time, is to do a blessing for all of us. However that comes forward, it may be terribly simple, which I'm presuming. So if we just take the moment and the breath, and just be aware of how connected each one of us is, heart to heart, soul to soul, family of God. As JR said, we're God lovers. And Father, we're aware right now of the blessings that just are so profoundly bestowed upon each one of us in the Spirit. They touch to our lives, every aspect of our life, and mostly our hearts, the way we see this life from a heart-centered place. And that we're blessed of God to serve, to love, to touch, to smile, to play, to be silly, to be kind, and to keep returning no matter how many times we fall inside ourselves, that the next immediate choice is not to stay there, but to move out of it, to even if we don't know how, reach up, ask God, ask the traveler in the light of the Holy Spirit, that whatever can be lifted at this time, whatever karma, whatever negativity, whatever habits that burden us, that don't make us happy, if they can be sort of unlodged and dispersed and given up, so that our awareness tracks it, and each time just let them go, let it go. We ask this in the light for the highest good, in the presence of the mystical traveler consciousness, the preceptor, and the Lord Jesus Christ. And let's just take one moment of silence to bless or to ask for blessings. And John Roger and John and Jesus, thank you for being with us in the light of the Holy Spirit. Berush Bishan.
And thank you, Leigh, for a spectacular evening and sharing yourself. What an incredible night.
Thank you, everybody. I love you so much. You know I do. And see you physically soon, some of you, and otherwise, blessing this day.
Yeah, love, love, love.
Bye.
Thank you, Leigh. Thank you. Good night, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Leigh. God bless.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, thank you.
Bye,
You all for
thank you.
coming.
Thank you.
Bye, Leigh.
Bye, honey.
Your sweetheart.
Amazing.
John.
Thank you.
Oh boy, can't wait to hug him.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you, everybody.
God bless you.
Bless you.
Thanks, Janet.
Doing
this.
Thank you, Janet.
Good night, everybody. We will see you all sometime soon. If you want to come on back.